Welcome to OSSB Inside and Out, a podcast about staff member and alumni experiences at the Ohio State School for the Blind. Each week, we interview someone from the Ohio State School for the Blind about their experiences. Now here's your host, Brendon Hamblin.
Hello and welcome back to another long-awaited episode of the podcast. We've been dealing with the whole COVID-19 quarantine and not being able to record and what have you, and not being able to go out and do anything because everything's shut down. Today on the podcast, I have I'll let you introduce yourself.
This is Jim Peterfish, former physical education teacher from OSSB, not too long ago, but retired for about 8 years.
How have you been doing with this whole thing, and what have you been up to since retiring from PE teaching?
Well, so this is now 8 years that I've been retired. Retired back in June of 2012, and
Has it been that long?
most of the time. What's that?
Has it been that long?
It has been that long. It's it doesn't seem like it, but it really has been has gone by fast. But I was always coaching on the side and been running a business for a long time. So I continued to do that even after I retired. So I never. My wife says I never really retired. I just stopped teaching or going to school, to the blind school. So I've stayed relatively busy and kind of ramped up volunteer activities and that kind of stuff.
Right.
More recently, obviously, we're all sidelined with this pandemic and the stay-at-home orders and all. But for me, I've got the advantage, I guess, of being quarantined with a very lovely wife. I joke that, fortunately, she can't throw me out of the house because there's nowhere for me to go.
She's got to put up with you.
I'd end up on the porch, and she'd have to let me in eventually. So, but it's really. From a living standpoint, it's not much change. What I've missed is being around athletes and physically coaching them and interacting with them on a daily basis. And over the last 6 weeks or more now, everything has been virtual. Everything's
right.
been online, doing Zoom practices, providing dry land activities and that kind of stuff because we can't be in swimming pools right now. And
right.
so that's
Probably can't be in swimming pools for a long time, considering everything that's going on. And
yeah, we don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be at least probably here June 1st anyway before they open.
Right.
And there's a lot of pools and communities that have already announced that they're not going to open for the summer.
I know Hilliard is one in Columbus that's not opening anything as far as aquatic.
Yeah, Hilliard's closed, and that was one of my contracts. I run the swimming lesson program there for the city of Hilliard, and so that was a hit to the the business side of what I do.
Right.
Grandview is another one that's announced recently. They're not going to open. There's a few summer club pools that are not going to open.
Right.
And it's so in the swimming world right now, everything is dry docked, and
yeah,
we're struggling a bit, but trying to stay in touch and we'll see what happens.
Right. Now, you started at OSSB when?
I started back in 1982. Okay. Back in the dark ages. And that was that was the year I actually finished my master's program that summer. In fact, missed my graduation because school had already started. So I didn't actually go through my graduation ceremony. So, in fact, that reminds me, I really feel for the seniors this year, the graduating seniors, and not
being
able to have the traditional ceremonies, the commencement, all the other things that I'm sure were well planned out before, school was called, and the dinners and the recognition ceremonies and the parties they were going to have and things that they might be looking forward to. So
right.
all
prom,
senior trip, all those things that I'm sure that they were looking forward to, that initially got postponed and then canceled. And so to all those that may be listening that are graduating seniors, there's a lot of people feeling for you, and I hope that you're coming up with creative ways to celebrate your accomplishments, and know that everyone, your staff, the faculty, and all are very proud of everything that you've done.
Right. And that includes OSSB graduating seniors this year and non-OSSB graduating seniors this year. So,
right. Everybody is affected by this.
Right.
So,
I don't know anybody who's not. So,
yeah. And I guess to parlay off of that, well wishes to everyone out there that's in the OSSB community, and students, faculty, staff, and their families, hoping everybody is staying well and weathering this quarantine, and
right.
that everybody is staying healthy, and both physically and mentally, and as well as emotionally.
True. Very true. Let's see. Is there any sort of difficulties teaching visually impaired as opposed to teaching normally sighted students, whether it be swim or PE in general, or what have you?
Well, I think there's definitely a difference, but when I talk to people outside the school, and when I was teaching and since then, and I think every teacher gets this kind of a response when you're asked where you teach, and you say, I teach at State School for the Blind. They say, oh, that must be a real challenge.
Right.
Well, teaching in and of itself is a challenge. It doesn't matter
right.
what realm you're teaching in. And, I part of what I do as a business is to train teachers, that
right.
are going to be teaching eventually kids how to swim. So a lot of what I do is training teachers, and what I tell them is that if all you think you want to do is teach, don't do it. If that's all you think. However, if you want to be a good teacher,
right.
just understand that teaching done well is very hard work. Teaching done poorly is one of the easiest jobs in the world. It's
right.
just glorified babysitting.
Yeah.
But if you want to teach well, you've got to put a lot of work into it. And the situation that I was hired into there back in 1982 was to be immersed into a staff of just amazing teachers. Not counting me as one of them,
right?
But I had the fortune of coming in and working with Annie Toll for 25 or 26 years, and she's one of the most amazing teachers I know. Pours everything that she had into what she was doing. And
I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah, and then because I, taught a few more years after that, and fortunately was uh, Annie was replaced with Mrs. Brewerwood,
Right.
who was another, amazing, at that time. Well, she's still a very young lady, and
Right.
but came in with a lot of energy and reminded me a lot of Annie in that sense, and so my two closest colleagues that I worked with, I couldn't have asked for a better situation. But the entire staff, I can't think of one teacher who wasn't really dedicated to what they were doing. And of course, working with the visually impaired,
Right.
that part of it was different in physical education, because when you look at the disability of visual impairment or blindness, it is a disability of mobility.
That is true.
So what are you trying to get them to do in phys ed? And that's move around a lot. And
Right.
so that creates its own challenges. But a lot of the image that a lot of people have of the school is that there's a bunch of students running around. They're all totally blind, and they're all walking with dogs and canes, and
Right.
and
That's the typical image of what people think.
yeah,
But it's not really that.
Right. And the majority have some sort of useful vision,
Right.
and once you have a little bit of vision, you're more of a sighted person than you are totally blind.
True.
And therefore, that's in the physical education realm, that's what we use. And of course, you adapt and modify all things so that the idea is everybody can be successful.
Exactly.
And of course, the challenge is to get kids to enjoy movement,
Right.
so that they want to be there, and that's really what I kind of took from Miss Toll,
Right.
was the environment that she promoted, and then in my own quirky and goofy way, tried to make sure that that kids had fun when they look forward to coming to the gym,
Right.
and regardless of their ability, that the idea was that they were going to come down and they would have fun, and whether that was having fun with the relationship that I had with them, or fun in the realm of the activities that we were doing.
Right.
I always wanted kids to associate the physical education, PE, going to gym class. I wanted that to be a time, and it was so fun to to stand out the door and watch kids run to the gym, because that's where they wanted to be.
Right.
Of course, that changes as you get a little bit older. You get into high school, and
Attitudes change and and whatnot.
and that's all. It's all part of it, and but you change the focus of what they're trying to do and try to challenge. We're certainly blessed with facilities that, and that was one of the most attractive things about that particular job is when of course, I was somewhat familiar with the school because I'd been there before.
Right.
And in fact, my first time spending much time in the school was actually because I took a orientation and mobility course as part of my master's program, and my teacher was the famous Rob Mills.
I've heard that name several times.
Yeah, and the first week we met down at OSU on campus, but then from then on, for the remainder of that quarter, we met at the school. So every week I was in the school, and got to look at the job posting board. And at that time, jobs were truly posted, with a thumbtack and a piece of paper on a bulletin board, not what you think
online.
of now. There was no internet and computers and, and all that stuff.
Right.
And so I was actually in the building a day or two of when that job was posted, and I was the first person to apply, and I believe got the first interview, and for whatever reason they settled on hiring me. So that whole process, in looking at the job itself, I looked, and I had a lot of teaching experience through my undergrad work and working in different schools, and the typical gym cafetorium situation that you have in a lot of elementary and middle schools, where you do your gym class, and then you've got to set up the tables to have lunch, and then you've got to tear everything down because it's the auditorium as well and all that. And here we
didn't have that problem at OSSB.
No, we had a beautiful gym. We had a swimming pool. We had the track. We had at that time we had a cinder track out in front with the wires.
Right, where the big toy used to be before it got pushed to the back of the campus. Where it is now.
Yeah, and so we had wires on grass, and then of course eventually got the nice regulation 400-meter track built, and of course the property itself. Just all the things you could do outside.
Right.
And beautiful property, and so as far as a physical education teacher goes, it's a dream job. And a lot of the folks that I know that are phys ed teachers now or have been, they can't believe the type of situation that I had. And
I can imagine.
It was easy to understand why someone would be there, for as long as Annie was there, and myself, and now Allison. I don't know how long Miss Brewerwood has been there now, but probably close to, 13, 14 years now, 15 years.
Something like that. I would have to guess. I'm not sure. Or
I'm sure she's way too young to be there that long. But anyway,
probably.
It's a place where you once you're there for a short period of time, you become part of a family. You get to know kids. A significant portion of them are residential there, and of course the being involved from the coaching end of it, the trips that we got to take, and that were initially they were weekend long trips. We'd leave on Thursday or Friday and not get back until Sunday afternoon, and you travel quite a ways by bus, long trips, but you got to know kids really well, and certainly much better than you do in a public school type setting.
Right, where you only see them from, say, K to 6 or 6 to 12. Yeah,
limited grade ranges. You got a lot more kids shuffling through shorter periods of time. We had, for the most part, the kids would have physical education every day,
right?
In the gym or in the pool a couple days, and even for the longest time, and it wasn't until some of my last years there that even all the way up through your senior year, you still took physical education. There was a time slot for that, and kids would start to get pulled out for different vocational reasons and things like that. But for the most part, we had them from the time they started at school there until they graduated, and a lot of time, and you just don't have that in the various public school systems, and particularly for visually impaired students in the public school systems, that oftentimes are excused from phys ed because they don't have the ability to adapt
Right.
and apply the curriculum. So students that ended up at our school that were at other school systems, they were somewhat leery at first, but then I think eventually amazed by what they could do.
Right.
And we had, gosh, I think just with the the ability to have a trampoline, we had a trampoline there for years that in the public schools, those were banned.
Right.
And we were able to keep ours. I mean, I think it's still there.
I think so. And OSSB is not by any means quote unquote new. Or at least it wasn't when I was there. It may be by now, but if it's even still there.
Yeah.
Ours was old.
Right.
But it worked.
Yeah. Something kids always enjoyed. And again, one of the benefits of having a dedicated space for physical education and being able to promote it as a piece of equipment that was vital and gave an experience to visually impaired kids that they wouldn't get outside of the school.
Right. And I know we did some PE field trips, kayaking or something like that, and Camp Lazarus. That's a story that I'll never forget.
Yeah, the outdoor pursuit, some of the climbing, the ropes courses, the kayaking classes, and those were all fun.
The scuba diving in the pool.
Yeah, that was a great day.
That was fun.
Yeah, I actually, I haven't actually dove in a while. It's been 2015 since the last time I actually did any scuba diving, but ironically, I actually went swimming on Monday. This is Wednesday the 6th,
right? And
on Monday the 4th, I was up in Alum Creek swimming, and so no pool, no problem.
Right. Don't need a pool to swim. Just need something with water.
That's right. I was the only one in there, but
that's probably better for your safety.
There was about maybe 500 yards between me and the next person. So,
well, that's good. Are there any memories, whether it be from PE or non-PE events, that stick out that OSSB held or did or attended in your mind from your time at? Well,
I mean, over the years, certainly a lot of the trips were memorable. The one I think that sticks out for those of us that were on the trip that went up to South Dakota in January. Why on earth South Dakota hosted the wrestling and cheerleading championships? And I can't even remember what year it was, but it literally got down to minus 100, and it was minus 60 most of the time. And that particular trip, we drove up there. We drove a van and a station wagon, and I remember driving the van, and it was so cold that the tread of the tire came off on the van, just sort of ripped off, and it was beating against the floorboards of the van and broke a hole up into the van. And I think at that time it was Pharrell Parker that was back there, and it was like a machine gun going off, and we had to stop, and we were out in the middle of nowhere, somewhere in I think, northern Iowa at the time, and we limped along, and the very next exit, there was a restaurant and a tire store, and that was it, And so we had the tire fixed while we ate. And we
Right.
got up there, and gosh, it was so cold. The buses, we had a van and a station wagon,
Right.
and we took the batteries out of them and took them into the hotel. The city up there opened up their garages so that the other school buses from the other schools could park their buses indoor, because they couldn't get them started. They had to be towed in, where we were, it was a small college where we were actually competing, and from where the competition was in the gym to where the eating facility, where the dining hall was about the length of a football field. And even just walking that distance, people were just frozen. And so they started running shuttles to get just back and forth. And then when we were going to leave, the state of patrol up there closed all the roads. So we weren't even allowed to leave. And so we had to stay an extra day. And so that trip, it took us a couple of days to get up there, because we stayed all night, I think, at the Iowa school, and made it a 2-day trip, and then ended up having to make a 2-day trip back, and we got delayed a day. So I think that trip was about 6 days. But anyone that was on that trip remembers that trip for sure. Over the years, of course, a lot of the swimming trips that we took, and whether it was just the regular, getting over to Indiana and back, and then there were all the regular events that occurred throughout, a lot in the spring, obviously, a lot of the things with the elementary school, and the art fair, and the spring festival, and
track and field day
with the Lions clubs, and all that. Those are all, all things that the students look forward to, and was that were a lot of fun. Things that the Christmas events, the Christmas concerts, the dinners.
Those were always my favorite.
Yeah, most of the kids, the students were involved in a lot of different things, whether it was, athletics or music, vocal or instrumental, or some type of drama. And so everybody was involved in multiple things, and they're just good times to think back on.
I would agree. Let's see. Is there any advice that you may have for anybody who's looking to send their student or child to OSSB?
Yeah, sure. I think there's certainly when you are brought up through the various municipal school systems, and you look at the least restrictive environment that you want to promote with any type of student who has a disability, that you want to make sure that they're included in the fullest way that they can. And if their school districts are providing that, then that's where they should be.
Right.
But the fact is that there's a lot of kids around the state of Ohio and around the country that aren't being served properly with their school districts. And they won't find a better educational setting than you will at the blind school. It's absolutely top notch, and it's not. I have a perspective on teaching that goes beyond the school, And I can tell you, you won't find a better staff there and people that are dedicated to promoting, the educational improvements of students who need it. The stigma is that it's from a parental aspect is that full-time education with a single disability
Right.
is kind of very low on the spectrum of least restrictive environment. And so therefore, when they're looking at options, when they realize that the child is blind or has a visual impairment that is going to need modifications from a learning perspective,
Right.
and they start pursuing this with their school districts, and they start getting the information and they start reading, and you go from being full-time in a regular classroom all the way down 12 or so steps all the way down to full-time residential facility with the visually impaired.
Right.
You're at the bottom. Well, no parent goes, man, I want my kid to have what's at the bottom of the list,
Right.
and so, but what happens is that they start in the educational setting that they think is the best place, but yet their child's not learning,
Right.
and is being delayed, and it takes several years for them to figure that out until they realize that maybe there is another place, and that place then ends up being OSSB, and by the time they get there, they're a few grades behind.
Right.
And there's a catch-up period. It's not that the student isn't capable of learning; it's that they don't necessarily have the opportunity or the expertise, the resources that are necessary. And it's not that the school districts aren't trying to do what's
right.
What's best, is that they're just not capable of doing it. And so any parent that may be listening that's looking at that, you owe it to yourself and to your child to at least observe what's going on.
Right. Check it out.
And you get up there and you will see just a from top to bottom, from administration all the way through, you will see people that are dedicated to the task of teaching and making sure kids are learning as they should be, and that's school wide.
Right.
It's just not the teachers. I happen to be a teacher, but teachers are supported by the paraprofessionals, the teacher aides, the support staff, all the special services, the medical staff, the nursing, to the maintenance, to the food service, to the
right.
It's just
that list goes on and on and on
and on. Yeah, and it's just filled with people that are just they're quality folks, and for the most part enjoy coming to work and have a perspective that, regardless of the job that you're doing there in the school, it's all related to making sure children are learning.
Right.
And that's what schools are all about.
And it's like, as opposed to regular schools, it's students first, education second. Would you say the same?
Yeah, I think, and it obviously it goes hand in hand, because the purpose of a school is to make sure children learn, and
right.
And that's a huge difference between, there's a difference between teaching something and making sure kids learn something.
Right. There's a big difference there.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge difference. That what goes on at the blind school is that because of the the focus and the amount of resources and the small classroom settings is that everyone is focused on the learning piece and the progress that kids are making, and they can take things in smaller steps, and they can individualize as needed. It's not show up, take a seat in the classroom, listen or not, and then move on to the next class. There's a lot more accountability to what's going on, and there's a lot of success stories when I think back of various students that I had over the years.
Me being one of them.
What's that?
Me being one of them.
Obviously, I'm talking to one of them. But there's many of them that have gone on to be very successful in life, families, married, have kids. I was at a point when I was finishing up where I was actually teaching a lot of children of kids that I taught, so there's I guess that's where the whole family thing comes in.
Right. And
generations.
And OSSB is a family. I know I've touched on this practically every episode, but OSSB is a family. You walk through those doors and you get that feeling.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree.
And I know one teacher's been there the longest.
Yeah, when you there's of course I stayed connected with the school once, because of my involvement with the foundation.
Right,
and that's been very recent that I left that position. So I was up in the school probably more than a lot of retired teachers, where I would be there for meetings, typically once a month or so, and also be involved in some of the activities that were going on, just because that was the purpose of the foundation.
Right.
And a lot of the teachers have turned over, but the two that come to mind very quickly, Mary Butler, who's been there, 60 years or more?
Something like that.
I don't know.
I think it's 60.
Twice as long as I was there. And and then also Seal Pirano. And they're just,
they're amazing teachers.
Yeah, they're just incredible people and icons in terms of teachers, and kind of epitomizes the family aspect and the dedication that goes along with the teaching profession, because to stay that long, you're doing it because you love it, not because you need to be there.
And the thing that surprises me is that Miss Butler has no plans of retirement. So you must really love your job. Well, granted, there are only, about 8 students per class at OSSB? Maybe 10
somewhere
at
around
most.
there, depending on, there were more in phys ed, but but yeah, in the classroom setting,
there's not 30 or 32 or typically what there are in normal schools.
Right, exactly.
They've got it down to a science.
Yeah, you're not kidding. Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing when you think of the longevity of particularly those two, but there's others that have taught, longer than I taught. 31 years, I think, is a good amount of time, but
I'd agree.
There were a lot that taught longer than I did. I think of Sharon and Jeff Shaw.
Yeah.
And the careers that they had and the impact that they had on students. And those that are still there that probably are teaching, but I know a lot of them have turned over. But the ones that I did come into contact with while I was not teaching but still involved with the foundation, again, was just a continuation of the legacy of great teachers up there.
Right.
And like right now, I mean, we've got a former student who's the principal,
True.
Michelle Wagner, Michelle Majoy when she was in school. And how great is that to have a former teacher as the principal? What an amazing person Michelle is.
Right. And I know they're working tirelessly during this whole thing that we've entered into now. Or at least they've got to be working tirelessly.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. And I guess as sarcastic as I may be, because I can poke fun at just about anything.
I'm the same way.
But but I am very much a glass half full type of person. And I look at this, it's definitely a challenge, and I would not want to have to experience this challenge as a teacher. I certainly am in terms of my coaching right now,
right.
And I understand the frustration on that end, but they're having to make sure that the children are learning, and they're not allowed to be in the same room with them.
Right.
And so
that's a challenge.
My take on it, the positive side of this is that everybody, and I know I'm doing it in the coaching world, is that when I do get back to whatever we call normal,
or whatever we will call normal.
Yeah, we're going to be much better at what we do. The teachers are going to be better teachers because of this challenge that they've gone through, and the creativity that they had to come up with or creative ways that they had to come up with to teach kids.
Right.
And again, for me, it's, a lot of this technology is new, and I've had to learn some of it. And
it's understandable.
Teachers that are in the field, maybe they're a lot more used to this, but still they're learning how to do it in different ways. And the challenge that they're facing, the teachers as well as the students, this is a different thing.
Right.
They don't have that teacher there that they can, get in touch with right away, and have that direct contact to ask questions and get corrected, and get guidance from and all.
Right.
It's still it's a challenging environment, but I truly believe that hopefully come next school year, at some point in time when everything gets back and students are in their seats and all that, you're going to find out that that the teachers are even better than they are now.
Right. Or were before this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I've seen where they're talking about doing 2 days in classroom and 2 days remote learning. That that makes a challenge for OSSB.
I would think so. I don't know.
I would think so too, but I've only seen that they're talking about making it 2 days in classroom and 2 days remote learning. So,
and is that to try and spread students out?
I think so.
Over the course of the week, and
I would think so.
Fewer kids in the, Yeah, I think schools and churches, anywhere where they're having it's typical to have mass gatherings, are going to they're going to have to come up with some creative ways to do it, and how that works out. And then, of course, then it's going to have to be, what do you do with the students at the school that would otherwise be residential,
right?
And how is that going to work?
Exactly.
But I don't know, but it's going to be fun watching, seeing how it all turns out.
I would agree. Is there any advice that you have for anybody? Well, since everybody's going through this, anybody right now with the times that we're in? Or
in general,
in general,
yeah, my advice is, to hang in there because, look at it as, every day is a day closer to when this is over.
Exactly.
It's not, it's not another day into it. It's another day closer to the end. And none of us know exactly when that is. Obviously, places are starting to open up. People, more people are getting back to work.
Right.
My wife was called back to work today. They had a staff meeting, and hope to be able to see patients next week. And the challenge there is getting all the personal protection equipment, the PPEs,
Right.
in line. They've had trouble, getting enough stock of that stuff to be able to see patients, and the schedule which they were under before the quarantine was a little more rapid, and now it's going to be spread out. And so in the dental industry and dental business, the practice itself has not changed a lot because they were always very protective of themselves, wearing masks and
Right.
glasses and gloves and all that. But now they've got to go a step further, and the challenge is going to be more the scheduling of patients and making sure that people are not crossing over in waiting rooms, and all that.
Right.
So that's just one industry that is really more prepared for it. And you talk about other people who, have been sent home, that maybe are unemployed at this point in time,
Right.
and are looking to get back to work. Businesses that may not be able to open, or not be able to open in a way that they can bring all their employees back.
Right.
They're all hurting. I think, from a state and federal level, they're doing just about as much as they can do at this point in time, and looking for ways to do more for people to supplement income and resources. And, if you're in a position where you can volunteer to help out, certainly do that.
Right.
Keep checking in with family and those that you can have, that you could potentially have contact with without much,
having physical contact.
Yeah. And just, staying in touch, staying alert, figure out new things, take the time to learn a new skill,
Right.
research things, read more, obviously be active,
Right. Exactly.
get out, enjoy the fresh air. What they haven't closed is, parks, and, you can always walk around your neighborhood and the bike ride, and, do things like that,
Right.
for exercise. So get out and stay active.
Exactly. I forget what I was going to say. I hate when that happens.
Yeah, especially on a podcast.
That can be edited. I've got some editing to do anyway from the looks of it. Yeah. I think I'm out of stuff. About an hour is not bad. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for being on the first episode back from the hiatus that the podcast has been on due to this whole thing that everybody's going through.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry your listeners had to have me as the first one back, but you know what? I enjoyed my time. I appreciate you. I know we actually tried to get this scheduled a long time ago before, and schedules didn't match up very well,
Right.
and then all of a sudden we go into quarantine. So
We were scheduled to do it like that week that they put us on quarantine. So
yeah, and we started talking about it quite a ways before that,
right.
and my schedule pushed it back, and so. But anyway, I hope all is well with anybody that is listening at this point in time. I have no idea when they're going to hear this, but if it's in the next couple of days, and stay well, everybody, and you know, enjoy life the best you can at this point in time, and hopefully things will be back to normal soon.
I'd agree, and this will go up as long as I have control over it, which I do.
Yeah, that's good.
It'll go up this Friday at 9. So,
okay,
you guys will be hearing this a couple days after we've recorded it, which is May 6th, 2020. All right, stand by. I'm going to run through the outro, and we can chat a couple minutes after or whatever. So, stand by.
All righty.
Thanks for joining us this week on the OSSB Inside and Out podcast. We know it's been a while since we've had an episode, but want to thank you for standing by until we've gotten the podcast going again. And I want to give a huge thanks to Mr. Jim Peterfish for being on this first episode back after the hiatus. Until next time, I'm going to leave you with these words of encouragement to keep yourself going until we get through this thing. Until next time, bye for now.
Remember, Doc, keep smiling.
Thanks for joining us this week on OSSB Inside and Out. Make sure to follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter by searching for OSSB Inside and Out Podcast. Make sure you don't miss any future episodes. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms. Thank you for listening.